We were poor. Sometimes we didn't have enough food. When my children waste food, I get frustrated. They have never had to wonder if there would be enough food. They don't know what it means to want. I do. Because of the lack of money and food, I remember working together as a family to gather food. Many warm summer days found us following behind the machines in the Spokane Valley, gleaning the green beans, cucumbers, and strawberries that were either too small or unfit for others to sell. I hated those dirty fields, but participation in this hunt was not optional. This food was necessary to our survival. Incidentally, this is how my mother's family spent their childhood, following the crops from Missouri to California, up through the Apple Valley and back through the Midwest, gathering crops and earning money. We had another memorable source of food. We had a friend who owned a big flatbed trailer truck. He would go through the grocery store dumpsters and retrieve used-to-be fresh produce that had been rejected and tossed out by a grocer who was obligated to sell only perfect specimens. Our friend would take these rejects, place them on his big flatbed truck, and bring them to us. When the rotted and spoiled food arrived, a flurry of activities followed. Because the decomposition of the food had already begun, we were on a race against time to clean and preserve it. The fruit had to have the bad parts cut off. Bad parts? The rotted, brown, mushy, worm-eaten parts were just bad? Really? Just remove that worm and the whole thing is good? Disgusting. I hated the thought of eating food pre-sampled by slimy worms. But we snapped beans, cleaned peaches, scrubbed berries, and sliced cucumbers with a frenzy. By the time we were done, the produce looked like it had been through a really poorly executed surgery. But then it was cleaned and the preserving process could begin. Canning. A tedious, lengthy process of boiling, seasoning, and sealing all of those hot jars to preserve the goodness. I spent many hours in the kitchen counting the pop of the jar lids to make sure each one sealed properly. In our rustic cement basement that smelled of firewood and fear, I loved to look at the colorful jars of produce preserved on the shelves. I hate to admit it, but they were beautiful. I still love the look of canning arranged nicely. And I'll be the first to admit that nothing beats homemade pickles, applesauce, peaches, strawberry jam, etc. Preservation. I wonder sometimes if I was preserved like all of that produce. Did the bad parts of my childhood, the hunger, the neglect, the abuse, get eventually cut away, leaving the good to be preserved, useful for the sustenance of others? Did God understand that some decay of human kindness had to exist in my life so that I might be rescued and others find life in a future through my story? Most days, all I see are huge bruises, gaping holes, and mealy worms in my life that seem to spoil the whole possibility of the goodness of God or the potential of love and goodness in this spoiled fruit. However, I welcome and warm at the thought that my poorly protected history maybe helps others see a hope for a future that is better than the day in which we currently exist.